No hands unboxing. Hello, denizens of the internet. Well, I've had a very good day bashing about the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and what do I think? Well, pending being proven completely wrong, the 16-inch gives me the same confidence as when I purchased my PowerBook 100, PowerBook 500, PowerBook G3, PowerBook Titanium G4, 2008 MacBook Pro, 2010 MacBook Pro, 2012 MacBook Pro, and 2015 MacBook Pro. Now, by confidence, I have to temper that by saying several of the portables I mentioned had serious and famous issues, like with the graphics cards, but I was one of the fortunate ones who escaped those problems. The 16-inch is a return to form, and do you know what my favorite feature is? The sound. It is insane. It's really hard to believe all that spacious wonderfulness is coming out of this box. The keyboard is what everyone is talking about, and it's great and makes a sound that lecturing professors will happily invite back into their classrooms. I remember when I was teaching a class and 3 people had the new, at the time, 2016 MacBooks, and everyone in the class told them to stop typing or we would kill them. I still don't like the USB-C only input-output connectors, but after 3 years they are a bit less obnoxious, but surprisingly still not very well populated with compatible devices. Be brave, Apple. Oh, and speaking of dongles, yes, you will need them, but don't buy any of Apple's, as they are absolute garbage. I think they needed to get the manufacturing cost of their $70 AV multiport dongle under 1 cent, so the internally exposed wires would let it double as a space heater. The fit and finish of the portable is top-notch, though the edges around the back where the exhaust vents are surprisingly sharp. You can cut cheese with it. But I know what most of you want to know. How good is it at writing comedy? Exactly. Let's compare my 2012 MacBook Pro with the 16-inch. Ha 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 ha! Clearly, the new MacBook Pro is much better for comedy. Oh, you want the boring numbers testing stuff. Fine. Well, I compared the 16-inch MacBook Pro with my trusty, almost 3-year-old i7 7700K Hackintosh with its Radeon VII GPU. If I go on the road in our RV, will I be able to crank out videos just as easily as I can with my trusty Hackintosh? That's what I wanted to know. Just for reference, I'm testing the base model MacBook with a 2.6 gigahertz 6-core 12-thread CPU and the Radeon Pro 5300M GPU. My Hackintosh is running a vanilla setup with Clover bootloader R5096, the iMac Pro 1,1 SM BIOS, and the latest version of Lilu and whatever green. First, the mandatory Geekbench 5 and Lexmark tests. The MacBook had a single-core Geekbench 5 score of 967 and a multi-core score of 5,234. My sad old i7 7700K Hackintosh had a single-core performance of 1,234 and a multi-core score of 5,248. My old Hackintosh performed much better in single-core score as expected, and just as well, if not a bit better in multi-core than the MacBook with its 2 more cores and 4 more threads. I'll put that down to my overclocked CPU and not having to mitigate thermal throttling issues. Still, impressive marks to the portable. The MacBook's metal score was 23,279, and the Hackintosh's was 49,725. That shows the dramatic difference between the 16 gig Radeon 7 and only 4 gig Radeon 5300M. While that is dramatic, you will be surprised by the Final Cut Pro results. The Lexmark OpenCL test for the MacBook was 10,484, and the Hackintosh's was 50,643. Again, that was to be expected. The problem is that Mac OS is not using OpenCL anymore, and there are no practical applications that I use that could take advantage of all that Radeon 7 computing goodness. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, for me, a practical test of Final Cut Pro performance. I picked a 15-minute 4K video. The MacBook scrubbed the footage and worked with all the effects without any issue. It was a joy to use. From an editing perspective, for my YouTube needs, the base model is liquid smooth. Now, let's compare render times. The MacBook output this video to H.264 format in 2 minutes and 12 seconds, whereas the Hackintosh did it in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The MacBook was significantly faster. What gives? Using the activity monitor, you can see that the MacBook is using Intel's H.264 encoder. I guess Apple did not trust the encoding capabilities of the 5300M. Whereas my Hackintosh, because it was using the iMac Pro SM BIOS, relied on the Radeon 7 exclusively. Why the Radeon 7 didn't whip the ass of that Intel iGPU encoder, I have my suspicions. But look at the activity monitor. Final Cut is using only a fraction of the Radeon's bandwidth. In fact, with the most recent update to Final Cut, which has been advertised as fully utilizing Metal 2, I noticed a dramatic decrease in GPU usage from the previous version of Final Cut. Just out of curiosity, I tested a ProRes 422 render, and shockingly, the MacBook didn't use either GPU and relied 100% on maxing out the CPU, all cores and threads. But the Hackintosh, while also pushing the CPU, threw in some GPU into the mix and finished more than twice as fast as the MacBook. I'm not pissed off, but it is a bit off-putting that the Mac OS or Final Cut is not fully utilizing the Radeon 7. Now, just for a laugh, and because I can hear you screaming at your computer screens and your phone screens, I did in fact go back to SM BIOS 18,3 and enabled iGPU encoding on my Hackintosh. You can see it working here. The same 15-minute video took 5 minutes and 14 seconds using the 7700K's iGPU. Did I have all the settings correct? I'm pretty certain I did. Of course, it's a Hackintosh, so I'm not expecting a miracle. Apple is not optimizing for Hackintoshes, so far as I know. My only suspicion is that the iMac Pro SM BIOS is purposely designed to constrain the Vega GPU in the iMac to manage thermal throttling in that compact enclosure and has no let her rip setting for the unconstrained Radeon 7, which it knows nothing about. Maybe when the Mac Pro comes out, the 7 will get more love because I believe the big GPU silicon in the Mac Pro will be based on the same board. One can only hope. My conclusion is that so far the new 16-inch portable will be very popular. Just have to wait for the reliability reports. We don't want any repeats of that keyboard incident, do we? It pretty much packages my regular editing box into a portable configuration, and if you count up the cost of all the parts of my Hackintosh, the speakers and everything, the base model 16-inch MacBook Pro was actually cheaper. What is it, Wancho? Oh my God, you've had a heart attack. Get up, Pancho. Oh, I can't believe the news I heard. Yes, call an ambulance, someone. Call an ambulance, dear God. This is terrible.